All Force Follow videos are in the public domain. To learn more or to donate, visit www.forcefollow.com. If you want to be a successful 8-ball player, you need to recognize the fact that there is a difference between showing off and winning. The downfall of many 8-ball players is the belief that you must attempt to run out every time you step to the table. Running multiple balls but failing to finish puts you at an immediate disadvantage to win the rack, especially against higher quality competition. I'm going to share with you the tips on how to recognize a run out that is doomed for failure and how to recognize when you should try to run out and when a safety should be employed. For the sake of this video, I will be talking about it in terms of BCA 8-ball rules. Consider this cue table layout. Imagine your opponent has just broke and the cue ball is center table. For each grouping, you have a makeable starting ball, but this rack has multiple problems with both groupings. The first thing you should look for are clusters. As you can see, the 5 and the 9 are tied up. You can also see that the 1 and the 3 are clustered. In this layout, neither cluster offers a makeable combination shot. Clustered balls are the most obvious signs of a rack you will not likely run. Next, look for balls near the same rail. For stripes, the 13 and the 15 are frozen to the same cushion, which narrows your options on running the grouping out. Another common problem ball is one that lies near the side pocket. In this layout, the 2 is near the point of the side pocket. Although it isn't clustered, this ball is considered to be a problem ball. When evaluating a grouping, pay attention to the balls being blocked by one or more balls of the other grouping, or where balls are laying in a way that limit your options. Another consideration is whether or not the 8-ball can go in a pocket as shown in this layout. Even if you can run 6 open balls in a grouping, if the 8 is tied up, it may not be the best strategy to try to run out. You should also assess how difficult it might be to gain position on the 8-ball. If the 8-ball is difficult to gain position on, you might consider a defensive approach to playing the rack. When taking a defensive approach, always leave blocking balls for last, and always leave a ball to play if you're not able to bust a cluster and guarantee position on the next shot. To maximize your chances of winning a game, you should never take on a shot where you cannot control the landing point of the cue ball. You should force your opponent to make the unbelievable low percentage shot. More often than not, you will end up with the advantage or even with ball in hand. To further illustrate some of the things that I talked about, I'm going to rack a set of 8-ball here and break, and to kind of tell you what's going on in my mind when I evaluate any given rack. So I break, not great cue ball control off of that break, but 2 strike balls are down. I didn't scratch. The cue ball is center table, or almost. So the very first thing I look for are clusters, and the toughest one is going to be the 3-6 cluster with the strike ball up there in the upper right hand part of the screen. That's the most difficult one. The lower left hand part of the screen is also an area of concern. The 1 and the 2 are being blocked by that stripe. So those are the things that immediately jump out at me when I'm looking at this particular rack. Now, if I were going to play the solids, more than likely what I would try to do is pocket the 4, stun over, break up the 3 and the 6, and I would have a reasonable chance of being on the 5. But now I would have to try to either come off the 5, depending on the position I got on it, and to break out the 1 and the 2, or try to get shape on the 7 to come over and break out the 1 and the 2. But that's kind of chancy. I'm not really feeling strong about that happening. So, looking over at the strike balls, of course there's the cluster there with the 3 and the 6. The 1 and the 2 are making it difficult for a shot on my stripe here, my purple ball, but that's still doable. And then these 2 balls down here close to the lower right hand corner pocket, those are close together, but that's a very makeable combination. I feel very confident about taking on that combination. So my opening shot would be more than likely to take the combination and play shape for my ball over here by the corner pocket. Now what I would have to do the rest of the rack to go the rest of the way is get position on the 9 so I could then break out my remaining ball down there by the 3 and the 6. In this particular rack, the 8 ball is in very good shape. It's going to go in any pocket except for the lower left-hand corner pocket, providing that it doesn't get repositioned or balls aren't bumped into it or pockets aren't covered in the course of the rack. Now, if this situation came up in a tournament, what's going to really govern whether or not I try to run out is going to be my estimation of my opponent's skill level. If he's a really good player, I'm more than likely not going to try to run out. I'm going to leave that cluster, that 3-6 cluster with that stripe ball in the upper right hand part of the screen, and I'm going to force him to break that out and force him to control that situation perfectly. I'm just really not an aggressive player in situations like this. So what I would do really in any event, if I was playing a good player, or, playing the worst player in my league or at the tournament, is I'm going to choose the stripes, and my opening shot is going to be the 2 at the lower right hand part of the screen. It's going to be the combination, and off of the combination I'm going to try to play shape to get on my purple ball there in the lower left hand part of the screen. And then really what's going to decide whether or not I play safe is how well I can get on the 9 to control breaking the cluster there with the 3 and the 6. But more than likely I'm thinking I'm going to play a safety after I get down to the 9 ball there in the upper part of the screen. Let's say for the sake of argument that I decide to run out. I make the combination, I get position on the stripe ball that's blocking the 1 and the 2 and make it, and then I run down and get decent position on the 9, and then I pocket the 9 and break out my ball that's being blocked by the 3 and the 6. And let's say I get a bad roll. Well, what I've just done is I've solved both of my opponent's problems, and he is more than likely going to have an open table to run out. So that's why I would elect not to try to break out that cluster. I want my opponent to get a good roll. I want him to take the low percentage, high risk shot. That's always been my philosophy in 8-ball, and it's always served me well. Now, my solution for the rack is certainly not the only solution. I encourage you to leave a comment or maybe a video response if you have some better ideas about how to handle this rack. Always welcome a discussion. Please consider giving to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. It's one of the most well-known charities in the country. They do a lot of great work researching treatments for pediatric cancer and for treating children with pediatric cancer. So get over to their website and remember that no gift is too small for a cause like this.